years ago, I found myself in the emergency room. I thought that I was absolutely about to have a heart attack.
I was like opening doors for interviews because now Amy was like one of the first magazines to be right in the country when we started. We can journey through this together because no one arrives. We just come to a place of mastery, and then there's always something else in our life that we're working on, and so we don't.
So Queen, you have the power. You have the power to decide that you want to live a different life. Welcome back to Empowering Queens TV. I'm your host, Duquesa D Dean, and I'm happy to be back in your living room today. We're continuing our discussion on pregnancy, on miscarriages and loss, and body shaming. Today I'm here with my co-host, Simmone L, Bowe, the Limitless Life Coach, along with our special guest, Tishka Moss. Ladies, would you please introduce yourselves to our viewing audience?
Hi everyone, I am Simmone L, Bowe. As Duquesa said, I'm the Limitless Life Coach. I help people to break free of limiting beliefs and live the life of their dreams.
Nice. Hi everyone, my name is Tishka Moss and I represent Fourth Trimester Boutique.com. It's a virtual marketplace where you can buy gifts for new parents.
That's so exciting and so non-traditional. I absolutely love the fact that women who have just given birth have the opportunity to be gifted with such practical gifts, like a massage or somebody that will come in to help clean their homes, or tasks that are no longer at the focal point of a mother's life, but still are so necessary for her survival. So I commend you, Tishka, for opening such an innovative boutique for moms. And we'll hear a little bit about that as our show proceeds. And so, Simmone, in our last episode, we talked about miscarriage and we talked about losses. And we talked about how difficult it is to recover. And as we were beginning our dialogue on how society's pressures impact a woman during and after pregnancy, we were just about to touch on the body shaming elements. Have you recovered from some of the insensitive comments that may have been directed towards you as a result of being a thick woman who is living an abundant life?
Well, in actual fact, as I had shared with you and we were talking about the topic and everything, and I was saying, well, body shaming is like a daily thing, right? I mean, it isn't even just after birth. It's something that's constant. And so you run the difference between people who applaud you for being full-figured and they're like, don't lose no weight. And then there are other people like, what's happening with you? You know, and when you're going to get back? Right? So they reference like a time when you probably looked better in their opinion. Or I've had people who have approached me about, you know, restrictive garments.
Unsolicited? Like
unsolicited. Like just walk up to you and say, you know, I sell these. And you should. I'm like, wow, okay. I just get to the point where it's like, okay, so my body is offensive to you. All right. Cool. So when I was pregnant, as I mentioned to you before, I had lost the baby at about 5 months. So I wasn't really showing much. So it wasn't a lot of that body shaming after the fact. And I kind of went back to my regular size, which was
beautiful plus size. I mean, we come in all shapes and forms, right?
Yeah, so I carried I didn't have a lot of stomach weight, so people didn't even know. A lot of people, it wasn't that obvious.
And Tishka, I know that you're a new mom. And your son just celebrated his first birthday.
Oh, wow.
And I know that this must have been an amazing journey for you.
Indeed.
And so while you were pregnant and you were focused on making sure that you ate enough so that your baby could feed, because you know they say we eat for two. Did you feel the pressure of watching your weight so that you didn't put on too much pounds? And how did that impact your pregnancy?
Well, I was conscious of not wanting. I'd said to myself, I'm not going to go over 200 pounds.
Okay.
Like, I made that up. Nobody said it to me, but I made that up in my mind.
Right.
And actually, when I gave birth, I was at 197.
Wow.
So I was inching up, and I'm like, what's going on here? So I kept getting close to that down. But that was a self-imposed thing,
Okay.
mainly because I knew that as you get older, it's harder to lose the weight. So I
Right.
didn't want to run out because, they said typically women gain about 30 pounds.
Wow.
So if you go beyond that, then it's going to be that much harder to lose. So I tried to stay within that range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's some pressure though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
some pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember in my second pregnancy, I actually had put on 60 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yes, when I was pregnant with my son, I put on 60 pounds. And when I sat down, literally, my stomach would just be on top of my knees.
Mhm.
My son was born at 10 pounds, so he was a real
big
big baby
yes,
as well.
Definitely.
And I remember a number of times during my pregnancy, people would make insensitive comments about the amount of weight that I was putting on.
Right.
And it was really stressful because
Mhm.
you're trying to manage what you eat so that your child could be well fed while
Correct.
he or she is in you.
Yes.
But you're also very conscious of the fact that, when the baby is born, you have
Correct.
to lose whatever this residual amount of weight.
Yes.
Because if I put on 60 pounds and he took 10 with
Exactly.
him, I got 50.
Exactly.
And I think I still have some of that baby weight on me today. So it is a lot of pressure, and it comes like internal.
Yeah.
Was we begin to think about what other people think of
Correct.
us, right? And then
Correct.
we hear people say, you're not eating for two, you're still eating for one.
Mhm.
So the pregnancy journey is an emotional
Yes.
journey from start to
Yes.
finish.
Yes.
Now, in putting on those 30 pounds, though,
Mhm.
did you have a secret? Because you've snapped back.
I'm
Yes,
telling you.
yes.
And so did you have a secret that you were able to implement to help you drop those pounds? Have you dropped them all, though,
I
first
have.
of all? Okay,
I have.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. And I actually dropped them in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And that's because I exclusively breastfed my son.
Oh,
Okay.
they done
Breastfeeding, I mean, that
trick.
sucked me right in.
Wow.
My honey is a little gubba, so he was able to pull mommy back
Like,
in.
eat, baby,
Wow.
eat.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so as he breastfed, you were able to feel in your body like the
Yeah, because
contractions.
they say that you burn about 500 calories every time your child latches.
Wow.
And like if the baby's going through a cluster feed and they're just nursing all day, I recall would have been more than one occasion. My husband would go to work in the morning and come back and meet me in the same spot.
Wow.
And he's like, "You were here all day?" "Yes, right here. This is where I've been all day."
Wow.
Because that's a part of their growth spurts and stuff like that. But
Right.
yeah, you burn a lot of calories with breastfeeding.
Oh, that's new information for me.
Mhm.
As an old-time mom with two grown adult kids, I never knew that you just burn 500 calories
Yeah.
breastfeeding.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so, as you were breastfeeding,
Mhm.
did you encounter any challenges in breastfeeding?
Well, the real challenge I would have had, but fortunately I had a really good midwife.
Okay.
When I delivered. She was very patient with me because, of course, as a first-time mom, I don't know what I'm doing. This baby just came out. He don't know what he's doing. So it was, you have to be patient and you have to learn the techniques, because even though breastfeeding is a natural thing, it doesn't come naturally.
Okay.
You're not born knowing how to breastfeed properly, so you need to have someone there to teach you how to do it the correct way, because if it's not done correctly, then you get pain and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I started off the right way. My midwife was fantastic.
Wow.
So I didn't really have that much of an issue. It was just a matter of maintaining my energy while I breastfed, because
Okay.
it is very, very demanding.
Okay.
And the temptation, I was just telling someone this week, when you're breastfeeding exclusively, there's no such thing as full. You never feel full.
Wow.
No matter how much food they put in front of you, you will devour it. And then you will be like, okay, I'm hungry. Like,
Wow.
what else is there? My poor husband. He had to put up with a lot of, but Tish, I just fed you. Yes, but I'm hungry.
Wow.
So how did that impact your, I guess, desire to, or were you even thinking about the post-baby weight?
No, at that point, because I was basically back into my pre-pregnancy clothes. I'm like, well, okay. I just didn't want to make it a habit because I knew at one point I'm going to stop breastfeeding, and I didn't want to create that habit of me eating all these things.
Right.
And, you know, because when he stops nursing, then, okay, it's going to be a totally different situation.
Wow.
So when I went back to work, that I think was the hardest challenge for me because you had to then start pumping.
Okay.
And that's a totally different element, you know, having to find the time and the space. Fortunately, my employer was very understanding,
Okay.
and she would give me the time to pump and everything else, but it's a commitment.
So would pumping give you the same benefit of
You get the
calorie
same,
burning?
it's not the same because the pump is never as good as the baby.
Okay.
Whereas a baby can actually drain the breast, the pump won't.
Okay.
But you will express some milk, and you won't get the painful engorgement if you don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a wonderful tip for new moms
Mhm.
who are seeking to have their bodies back in shape
Oh,
very
yeah.
quickly.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
as I watch social media, and I know we're all on social media, I see where women give birth, and then a week or two later they're out and about talking about how they're snapping back and how much weight they've lost. And for me, that's an indication of the pressure we as society put on them to
Right.
really get back in shape right after giving birth.
Right.
So if you were to give new mothers tips on how to breastfeed so that they can have the contraction and it can start to pull the body back, what would be some of the suggestions you would have for them so the baby really latches?
Right. So what I would say, if you aren't getting the kind of help that you need when you've just delivered, because the first few days are the most important in terms of creating that bond and developing the latch, seek help. We have certified lactation counselors that'll help you out. They could give you tips and everything because some people have different requirements.
Okay.
So don't suffer in silence. And if there's not anyone in your circle, because with me, I didn't have anyone in my immediate circle that breastfed outside of my sister, but she doesn't live here. So I would have to call her and be like, okay, look at this, and I'm like, this look like this the right thing? She's like, yeah. I'm like, check this out. How'd that look to you? So, but that was it because my mom didn't breastfeed, my aunts didn't breastfeed, my grandmother already passed, so there was no one to say, well, okay, Tish, this is how you do it. So I sought help.
Okay.
So if you desire to breastfeed, come and find the help that you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. We were talking off camera right before we started about my daughter and the fact that she's a size 2. She's had a child as well, and breastfeeding was one of the ways that she was able to really slim, because she's lost all of her baby when she was humongous when she was pregnant. But because she breastfed so often and so much, and she was determined.
Yeah.
She did have some of the challenges with latching.
Yeah.
The soreness and
some horror
irritation.
stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why a lot of women don't breastfeed, because of the pain that we have heard associated with it.
Right.
But if we want to really get our bodies back in shape and naturally, that's definitely an avenue.
It's a win-win because you're giving your child the very best.
Right.
I'm not knocking formula because it has its place, but science could never replace what God did.
Right.
I was going to say it's so good for the baby
exactly.
as well.
So
they're
it's a win-win.
And
it's
stronger.
a win-win.
Yeah.
They're calmer. The benefits of breastfeeding, it's endless. You could just go on for days about it. And for us, with such a high prevalence of breast cancer, they have studies where if you breastfeed for at least a year, your likelihood of developing breast cancer drops by 1/3.
Wow, that's another great benefit.
There you go.
So for me, because my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer a few weeks after I found out I was pregnant.
Okay.
Wow.
So I'm like, you know what? If that's going to help me, let me try that route as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay,
That's awesome.
That's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And as you think about your life, because Simmone is also a mom now. She has a daughter. How old is your daughter now?
2, going to be 3 next month.
Oh,
She's
fun times. Fun times.
Tell me, the terrific twos.
Woo! And new moms and those that are aspiring to be moms always consider the life that they would have with their kids after their kids are born. And so, from the moment you get pregnant, you're thinking about you know, the dates that you would go on with your daughter, you'd be playing house, the clothes you would dress her up in. Perhaps you've thought about the fact that she may be a lawyer or a doctor.
Right.
I mean, we've gone so far in projecting
Yes.
that child's life. And when a mother loses a child before coming to term, they lose more than just a child.
Definitely.
They've lost hopes and they've lost dreams. And what I love about Simmone's story is she's encountered a loss in having a child the traditional way,
Right.
but she is a mom non-traditionally,
Right.
and it makes it no less of a special
Agreed.
bond
Agreed.
between her and her daughter.
Agreed.
And so as you think about your life post-pregnancy or your life post-adoption, can you share what may have been some of your greatest adjustments? What are some of the things that you've had to adjust in your life?
Well, anyone who knew me prior to my son knew that I had a very good relationship with my bed. Like, I enjoyed sleeping a lot, right? And now that he is here, like, what is that? Sleep. Like, sleeping in is 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like AM?
I'm happy for 7 a.m.
Wow.
Whereas, like, on a weekend, I could stay in bed till 10, 11. No, that's never going to happen right now.
Wow.
So the adjustment of, and I amaze myself with how I function on such little sleep nowadays, you know. I didn't think that I would be able to, but you adjust.
Is that maternal just
it has to be.
fixing?
Has to be, because I don't know how I do it.
Yeah, 'cause I've heard people say it never goes away, no matter how old the
That's
child
it.
gets.
Wow.
That's it, you know.
What about you,
Yeah.
Simmone? Living such an active life, what were some of the adjustments that you've had to make?
Well, that definitely was one.
Sleep.
Because I had her from she was 5 months old, so kind of still in that waking up through the night phase and all of that stuff. And so that was a lot to get used to, plus working at the same time.
Yes.
So I wouldn't have had the benefit of maternity leave.
Yes.
Even though I could have taken one, but, you know, I didn't.
Wow.
So that was a huge adjustment.
So there's no period of time off when you adopt?
You can.
You
can. But when I got her, it wasn't an adoption.
Formal, right.
So I couldn't have applied for the time.
Okay.
So that was a huge adjustment. I used to sit next to my colleague who had just had a baby as well.
Right.
And I was like, how do you do this? Like, how you been doing this all this time? Like, coming to work and functioning.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know how you do this.
Wow.
I used to really, honestly, just feel so frazzled.
Yeah.
You know, because you are operating on this little sleeve. You're adjusting to the fact that you are responsible completely for another human being.
Yes.
And all of that undertakes. So, you know, this isn't like something you've done before.
Correct.
So you're still like trying to figure out stuff. Like I remember like I would take her to church and people who had children like, give me this baby, let me change these pampers because you don't know what you're doing. And I used to be glad. I said, let me watch them. The last set of pampers I used to change was my niece who was like almost 35. So I don't remember all of this stuff. You know what I mean? So that was like a huge adjustment, just changing my lifestyle, like you say, you know, being first of all single and then very busy and productive, working and then doing, you know, your side hustle and all the other stuff going on. And so now thinking I need to maybe scale back. Like, how do I do that? How do I stop doing some stuff because now you're feeling guilty and all of this because now this child needs your attention. So it's like a lot going on. And then now she's at the age where she's very clingy. So even trying to leave the house, leave her with someone, like she doesn't want to stay. I want to go with you. So it's like all of that pulling and tugging. So it's a lot to really get adjusted to, and having a support system to really help you is important.
And I guess it's also important for while you birth fourth trimester because there are vendors available that can kind of step in and help mom be able to balance by taking on some of the duties that, because I mean we're superheroes. Every woman is a superhero
indeed,
because we balance so many things.
Correct.
So just having an avenue, a one place shop where you can go to and literally just pick what you need and have it paid for and delivered is so important.
Awesome.
And so as you talk about support, that's one way that we can support our new moms and dads. But from another perspective of support, how impactful was the support of your family and your husband during your pregnancy, but also after you'd given birth?
They were extremely supportive. Well, my mom had to be long distance supportive because she went to my sister in Maryland to have her cancer treatment.
Okay.
So she was gone for most of the pregnancy, but they gave her approval to come back 2 weeks after the baby was born. So she was able to be with me and take care of me and mommy me because I needed that low. Because that was when I first found out, and she was like, "Oh, I have to go," and I'm like, "Well, how am I gonna do this without my mommy? Like, what? No, mommy, I'm not gonna do this without you." So she came back, and they were extremely supportive. Fortunately, the place that my husband worked at the time, they gave him paternity leave.
Okay,
which is very rare in the Bahamas.
It is.
So he worked for a very progressive organization.
That's
so
good.
he had, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks of paternity leave. Great. So he was able to help me out tremendously. And I tip my hat to single mothers because I don't know how ladies do it because I it's tough. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of support, and it's still tough, you know.
And so we talk about support and having somebody in your life after you've given birth, and you have someone to help you with all of the tasks associated with taking care of a newborn. However, there are times when we need additional support, like the mom who's lost her baby.
Yes.
That's not a road to go down alone.
Correct.
And so, Simmone, I just want to know, how did you handle that? What was your village like, and how did that village help you through the difficulties associated with losing your baby?
Yeah, that is a tough question.
Okay.
Because when that happened, I wasn't around my village.
Wow.
So I really went through that, afterward, on my own, because I was living on another island at the time.
Right.
So at the moment, like when it happened and I was in hospital and all of that, having everyone around was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I found that, and I guess sometimes we think that the nurses get a little rough, because I think they realize when you start to slump, and when you just be in bed and you just start drifting down, and they'll be like, get up out of this bed, like walk around, do some stuff or whatever. And I just said, man, leave me alone. Y'all so rough, y'all don't know how to handle people. But I realized that it kind of shocked me out of that downward spiral that I was sinking into. And so having family around, having those like professionals around to really push you out of those feelings of depression and all of that. And then going back into an environment where I was relatively on my own was a little challenging, but it was necessary, I think, because it helped me to really reflect and to process things on my own, which is, I think you need that. In as well as you need the support.
Correct.
There are seasons when you still have to face yourself.
Correct.
And face the things that, like you talked about, all of the things that you would have lost, the hopes, the dreams, the expectations, all of the things that you were, like, wow, this would have been my very first pregnancy.
Wow.
And so, there's a lot riding on that.
Right.
Because you're thinking, well, this may be my first and my last.
Right.
And it actually has been.
Right.
Wow.
So you have to process all of that stuff. So I think having your family members and loved ones around is very helpful. And then having those seasons where you're alone and to process is also very helpful. Going back to work and, getting back into your normal routine is also helpful too. Because I think, like I say, you get into those moments where you just start to sink, and isolation is the worst thing that you could ever have.
And it's what we naturally
when you're recovering.
tend to do.
Correct.
Withdraw.
Yes.
Correct.
Withdraw.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago, we sent out a question from the Power of Her, asking women who have gone through miscarriage and loss to talk about how they got through and how long it's been. And we had a lady respond who actually said that her loss occurred 36 years ago.
Wow.
And she is still impacted by it today. But it's not as bad as it used to be. But she still remembers. But she was fortunate enough to have one child after she had her loss. But she's not been able to have any additional. And then there was another lady who responded, and she spoke about the fact that she's had 3 losses. She's had, in her first pregnancy, she lost a single baby. And in the second pregnancy, she actually lost twins.
Wow.
And we had
Ouch.
another lady respond, and she had just experienced a loss maybe about 12 weeks ago.
Oh no.
And so it was pretty fresh.
Yes.
And the common thing among all of them, regardless of the length of time, was the fact that it never leaves you.
Yeah.
It always remains with you. How can we help women to move into maybe doing activities that positively remember their angel babies, as opposed to sinking, right? One recommendation that I gave, and maybe you ladies can think of a recommendation or two, was that perhaps on the birthday there could be a hospital visit to a children's ward where you donate a car seat, or it doesn't have to be anything big, but just do something that honors the baby.
Right.
What sorts of things do you suggest, Simmone, that moms can do? I know you've been in this situation. What sort of things that you think moms can do that can help them carry on the legacy and the memory of their angel babies?
I think those are really, really good ideas. And I think when you do things to take you outside of yourself and then to also memorialize
Yes.
that special one, you know, it helps you to grieve and to move on.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people feel guilty about moving on because they feel like if I move on, then I'm dishonoring them.
Right.
And so when you can do things that, like you mentioned, that can anchor the memory without keeping you in the dark space of it,
Yes.
I think is really important. So I know one person that I know in particular, she started a foundation in honor of her child, and she started to do things out of that foundation to really support things in the community and stuff like that. And so I think, you know, you don't have to go as grand as that, but as you mentioned, you know, you may want to, on that birthday or on that anniversary of that death, to reach out, to be a support maybe to other people. To you know, some people like to have the grave and to go back and to reach out and speak and share with the child, you know, oh, you would have been this age, and you know, to kind of keep them alive and to keep that memory alive without, like I said, being in a dark space. So I think for me, reaching out to other mothers that have lost, maybe forming a support group, maybe you know, the people that you know, and it doesn't have to be a lot of people, it could be 3 people, but you know, maybe on a particular day that you all decide, you know, we're gonna go out for a coffee, or we're gonna go out and do something for someone else, we're gonna give back, we're gonna give gifts, we're gonna do something, go to the hospital, whatever it is that we're going to do, but to get outside of the darkness and to really embrace the joy that you did have. And that's what I always think about. You know, even though my daughter is not with me today, I think about the fact that I did get pregnant. You know, that moment when you miss your period and you're like, what's going on? And that moment when you take that test and it's positive. And like all of those milestone moments that you can say, wow, I experienced that. Even though I did give birth to a dead child, I still had the feeling of labor pains and being in the hospital and having to give birth to her and all of those things I can say that I experienced. And so instead of looking at it, it's all about your perspective. And that's really what resilience is all about. And optimism is that you look at the glass as being half full. You don't look at what I lost, but I look at what I had. And I embrace and celebrate the journey that I did have. And so I think when we can do things like that to memorialize, but to keep leveling up, to keep moving forward is so important in your healing.
And Tishka, what about you?
Well, for me this year, in preparing, you know, with Fourth Trimester and preparing for Mother's Day specials and all of that, I came across something where the Sunday before Mother's Day is actually Bereaved Mother's Day. So it's a day dedicated to moms that would have lost their infants, babies, or whatever, because Mother's Day is a very challenging time for a lot of people. Those that have lost their mothers, those that wish to be mothers and aren't mothers and that kind of thing. So it's actually the week before Mother's Day where they celebrate bereaved mothers. But for me, I think we need to take away the taboo of miscarriages because they are far more common than women think. I remember filling out a form for one of my loved ones, and one of the questions was, how many pregnancies? And I'm ready to fill it out because I know how many children she had.
Right.
And she's like, no, 6. And I'm like, wait, what? 6?
Yes.
But you only got 2 children.
Right.
I never hear you talk about miscarriages. So there's conversations that need to be had, especially because it makes women realize that they're not going through this alone. So I didn't realize, well, because I'm the type A personality, like I do all my research and everything, and I was telling Duquesa before we started, I didn't plan on having children.
Wow.
Like, pregnancy was never a part of the plan. My mother calls my son her miracle grandson. So the one she never thought she'd meet. Right? So whenever he walks in, oh, look at my little miracle. It's like, so when I became pregnant and, going through that, okay, there's no period, this test, I'm like, what is this about? So I went straight into like researching and looking at it, and I was like, okay, until I got past the first trimester, I didn't want to get too excited because I know a lot of women, that's when they tend to miscarry. So I was very cautious. I didn't tell many people because I wanted to get past that window. But I think women should be able to speak about it and everything, because if you do suffer a loss, we should come in as the village and take care of the woman with the loss. So I think there needs to be, like I said, less taboo, less stigma, less shame about it, and more open conversation.
And knowing what to say in
that's
that conversation.
That's it.
Because what I find is, and people are grieving, and in any scenario, but in this particular case, like how you talked about someone before who, lost a child but had another child but still grieving 30-some years. That another child can never replace.
Correct.
And that is what people tend to say. Oh, you will just have another one.
Exactly. It's not the same.
It's not the same thing. That person, that baby, that angel baby as you refer to, is a separate person.
Correct.
That no one will ever replace that person. And so we have to be very, very sensitive of the remarks that we make, that we think that we're comforting people, and we think that we are giving support, when we're really not. We're making it worse. Like, why are you carrying on? You have a husband,
exactly.
You have all of this. You have this good job and all that. You need to get over it. Just go for it. Don't wait too long now. All of the stuff that we say that's just so insensitive and don't help people to grieve.
Topic, but one of the things that I hated hearing right after my mom passed was that she was in a better place. So people say that all the time. I think it's so insensitive.
That's right on topic.
I think it's so insensitive. It is. Someone who's mourning the loss of somebody that they love so deeply that person is in a better place. And I know it's good intent.
There's good
behind
intention.
It. It's just the choice of words.
And the timing.
Yes.
You're still trying to get to
Come
grip
exactly
right?
with that whole thing. Like, I still trying to believe that she in a better place.
Exactly.
And so, as I think about what you have shared, I start to think about the fact that our society needs to be re-educated as well about what women go through, because when a woman loses a child, it's almost as if it's something to be ashamed of.
Right.
And I've heard women say that there's no reason the doctor could give me that this just happened. And they grapple with that for such a long time. And now you have society coming behind them, and because a year has passed and they haven't given birth again, that something's wrong with them, or they're putting pressure on them. And there's so many layers, because you could be afraid to get pregnant again, you could be having trouble conceiving again. And so we need to re-educate people on common sense things that they should say to support someone who's gone through such trauma, right? That's and the second thing is we need more support groups. We need more women to come forward and say that this has happened to me and this is how I got through. Because it's in sharing our stories that we help other women understand that there is hope on the next side of this darkness. But we cloak it and we hide it because society has made us feel as if something's wrong with us. Because we didn't bring a baby to full term. So I'd love to see more support groups for women in general. About losses, but also in general,
Just
because
being a woman.
we go through
Yes.
so much as women.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yes, I know, man, you go through some things as well. I don't want to exclude
They
you.
do.
Yes.
And so maybe some support groups, because men also are not opening up, because you
Correct.
have husbands and boyfriends who are going through these losses as well.
Exactly.
And no one focuses on them
Correct.
either.
Absolutely. No
Correct.
one pays
Yeah.
attention
And
to
that's a
them.
major
You
loss
have
too.
marriages that break up as
Yeah.
a result of
Yeah.
a loss of a baby or a
Yes.
miscarriage,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of pressure. So
A lot.
both
Indeed.
parties need to be supported.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we wrap up this segment, ladies, I'd just like to ask you to share some advice for a woman who is currently hoping that she will experience traditional motherhood. She's been trying, and she's really hopeful that one day soon she'll be able to hold a baby in her arms that she gave birth to. How can we support and encourage them as they go through this difficult time?
Well, I think definitely being mindful of what we say
Yeah.
and to just be loving support. And sometimes loving support is just being there.
Yes.
You don't have to say anything, but just to be there. And if we know that that's the journey that these people are on, that we're lovingly around them and saying, you know what, we're praying for you, we're
Exactly.
here for you,
Exactly.
and we're rooting for you in this
Yes.
moment. And
Yes.
just choose your words very, very
Agreed.
carefully.
Agreed.
I know I have a relative who, after 20 years, her and her husband had a baby.
Wow.
And I am sure, and just her story alone and their story, I should say, because they went
Correct.
through it together.
Correct.
It's just so amazing. And she would just say, hey, she came at the right time.
Correct.
It wasn't that, oh, I waited for 20 years.
Yeah.
Correct.
Her mindset was, wow, finally our dream came true. So there is hope.
Yeah.
We hear so many stories of that, and women in their 50s,
Yes.
Yes.
still having babies traditionally. And
Yes.
so I would say keep hope alive.
That's right.
You can always hope.
Mhm.
There's no charge for it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
It doesn't take anything away from
Yes.
you to
Exactly.
hope,
Yeah.
but in your hoping to be open.
Yes.
Don't allow your hope to make you tense and anxious and
Right.
afraid to live life,
Yeah.
and close out the people that love you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as women we do shut our mates away. We
Yes.
push them away. You
Correct.
don't understand what I'm going through. Like
Right.
he's not going through the same thing, or
Right.
and so just be open and be hopeful,
Yeah.
and just embrace the people that are around you, who are around you to support you.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And for me, what I would say to them would be to take the pressure off.
Yes.
What tends to happen is if women have been trying to conceive for a long time and they say, you know what, let's just adopt. As soon as they adopt that baby,
Yes.
it's like
Yes.
within
Yes.
weeks they get pregnant
Yes.
because
Yes.
they've taken the pressure off
Absolutely.
themselves. So
Yes.
I understand that is your desire and that's your goal, but do not stress yourself out over
Yes.
it because
Yeah.
it's working against you if you are solely focused on that and that's the only thing you think about. You can want it, but don't want it so bad that it causes you anxiety.
Great.
Yeah.
And Tishka, I'd just
Yes.
like to say thank you so much for joining this episode of Empowering Queens TV, for sharing your story,
Thank
for
you.
talking about Fourth Trimester
Yes,
Boutique,
thank
and
you.
for having such an innovative boutique for women and fathers,
Yes.
mothers and fathers, to reap the benefits from. Thank you so very much
Thank
for
you
that.
for having me.
Thank you so very much to my co-host Simmone Bowe for being here today as well, and for this stimulating conversation. And as we wrap up today's episode, just like to remind women out there that the Power of Her is a platform designed to help women be a part of a sisterhood of other women who are supporting and nurturing them as they transition through the various stages of life. If you're looking for a tribe to become a part of, if you're looking for a sisterhood of positivity and uplifting and motivational women, please join our Facebook page. Just search The Power of Her 242. We'll be happy to have you as a part of our tribe. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again in another month for another exciting episode of Empowering Queens TV.